These.
I know.
This is the FunBelt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Hosts to Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howlraiser, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sunbelts.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating. It's.
Hey, all right. Here we are. We're back. It feels like we haven't been together in a long time. I'm Jeremy Harper. He's Tibbs. The other guy is Shane. Welcome back to FunBelt Podcast. Guys, welcome back to the group. It feels good, doesn't it? It's like
The strike's over. The strike is over, Jeremy.
Were we on strike? Were we on the national podcaster strike? And I want to commend Shane for dressing like an actual podcaster. He's got the hat on, but also the hoodie.
Yeah.
You know, like all he needs is like behind him a bunch of branded coffee mugs or something, maybe a poster of Rocky, just something to say, hey, I'm into sports. But he's getting there. He's doing a better job than we are, Tibbs.
There's a lot of sports books behind me.
Okay. Okay. Well, we
also got like 7 inches of snow and counting, so that's part of the reason I'm wearing this. I had a shovel in my hand not too long ago.
Okay. Well, you know what? I need to find out what kind of sports books you have back there, because I never really I've read a few good sport books in my life. I will tell you this, Tibbs, and I'm just going to throw this out because it's kind of a light week, and we need to kind of fill shit up. Do you like movies about sports?
Depends on what it is.
All right, fair enough.
I mean, like Miracle, where it's about the hockey team. Yeah, that's kind of cool, but no, not my cup of tea.
Okay, all right. How about you, Shane? Do you like movies about sports?
Yeah, so I like the good ones, and I'm also like, I guess a little different than Tibbs, because I say maybe I can get into sports that I don't care about if it's a good movie about it and good story with good characters.
Yeah,
Shane was the first person to write the review for Cool Runnings, by the way.
Is that where he won his Pulitzer? I am one of these guys. I know I'm in the sports community. Like I write blogs and I attend sporting events. I don't like sports movies, and I'll tell you why. The importance of the sport itself is always like dialed up to a 20. Like it's the most important goddamn thing in the world. Like that, you know, even though we live in a world of suffering, of poverty, of hunger, of strife, of all kinds of calamities, it's like in this movie, the only thing that's important is baseball or football or track or whatever it's about. And I just can't unburden myself from that. Shane, am I taking myself too seriously?
I don't know, but I mean, maybe some of the good ones are the ones where it's not quite like that.
All right. Well, what's like
you know, Rocky?
Yes.
I mean, he takes it really seriously, but like he doesn't have to win for it to be like a great story.
Wow, I can't believe you said that, Shane. Because that Rocky is one of the few sports movies I love. Tibbs, would you agree with that?
I don't know if I've seen all of Rocky.
What? Oh my God.
I'd rather watch the real fights. I mean, that was the era of watching good old Mike Tyson. I mean, what more could you want than you get to spend a night at your friend's house that has the satellite that's the size of their entire house in the yard to watch 20 seconds of just complete ass whooping.
Okay. I can see that. Here's what I do like about Rocky, because Shane, you're right. There's only about 20 minutes of fight in that movie, right? The rest of it's more about Rocky sort of coming to grips with sudden fame and trying to live up to the moment and possibly having a relationship and pulling himself out of poverty. I mean, that's kind of what Rocky's about. Rocky's really not about the boxing match itself. You know what's another sporting movie that I love? I put in my top 3. Black Stallion. Would you consider Black Stallion a sports movie?
I'm not even sure what that is.
Oh my God. Francis, corrected this. What you've never watched Black Stallion?
No, I don't think so.
Oh
No.
shit. Okay, it's based off an old novel that was written in the 50s. It's about a boy who is shipwrecked on an island with an Arabian horse. And the boy and the horse form this relationship. They get saved. They're marooned and they get saved and they're brought back to New York. And it turns out this Arabian horse is like the fastest horse you've ever seen. And they end up with this big race at the end. He's taking the Black Stallion's taking on 3 of the fastest horses known to man too. And it is just one of the greatest scenes on earth. There's no music. There's no real commentator. It's just the horse race. It's and it is awesome, guys. I beseech you, I beg you, watch The Black Stallion, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, has a great performance by Mickey Rooney. Check it out.
Okay.
Speaking of great performances, did you guys see the MAC Sunbelt Challenge?
Saw some of it.
Warhawks were not partaking, opting out
How does that
to let the
feel?
Red Wolves have a spot.
How does that feel, though, Tibbs? That like the entire conference participates in this, and they're like, "Well, now the Warhawks, we don't have a place for you."
We have business to handle, Jeremy, in conference.
Okay.
We had to make sure that we're playing on Tuesday night in Pensacola.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's true. You know, there was a burst of brilliance from the Warhawks. Did we end up talking about that? I think I might have missed it when the Warhawks won 2 straight.
Those were the glory days, Jeremy.
I was hoping for some arrogance, Tibbs.
We cut down the nets. We
Yeah.
have stolen the trophy from the Sunbelt Conference offices during the Super Bowl. It is ours.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I watched a little bit. Like I bounced around. I was ill, so I was consigned to the couch, and I watched a little bit of the MAC challenge, and there was Shane. I'm a little hesitant to broach it, but I'm going to broach it. There was some controversy about fouls that they seemed a little bit uneven. And Shane, I'm just going to throw you in the fire. Do you feel like it was a little uneven in the games that you saw?
I mean, I only saw large chunks of a couple of games.
Yeah, sure.
But the numbers were uneven. I think you're the one who posted the total number of fouls, and it was uneven.
It was gloriously uneven.
Maybe I don't know how odd that is if you take 12 games and look at how the home court stacks up typically. Like, I don't know how out of whack that is, but when they're all played on the same day in the same league and everybody's paying attention, it did kind of stand out. I know I watched a good chunk of Texas State at Central Michigan when I got home. It was the last game. It was the one that was kind of separate from the others, so I got to see a lot of it. And Texas State did not get a very friendly whistle in the second half of that game. They just didn't. And I know I've heard ODU fans complain the same way, Arkansas State fans. JMU, I don't even know if it was like a lot of terrible calls or no calls necessarily, but, they get to the end of that game and Toledo's got a lot of fouls to give at the end of that game, to kind of keep them from getting a good look at the potential game-tying shot. So I don't know if it was terrible officiating necessarily, but the number of fouls called and not called definitely stood out.
Well, my policy on that is, like, when I hear people say we had to play the refs and the opponent, I'm like, if you're complaining about the refereeing, then you're kind of playing a loser's game anyway. It's bad referees or faulty refereeing or mistaking refereeing. That's just part of the game, right? But it did feel a little bit. It did feel a little bit uneven. Like, how many times are we told, Thibodeau, in a basketball game that if there's more fouls distributed to one team in the first half, it'll even out in the second half? Isn't that kind of the rule? I mean, not like a written rule, but kind of the rule of thumb.
I don't know what the MAC's slogan is. The SEC is. It just means more Sunbelt Rising. The MAC, I think, is hack a MAC or something because they were definitely some foul calling fools there, seeing the stats and everything else. And yeah, is what it is. Sometimes you just got to be better than the three other players that the other team has on the floor.
Yeah, sometimes you have to overcome that. But in the end, it was kind of meaningless, Shane. I mean, the MAC Challenge, MAC Sunbelt Challenge, was supposed to be a way for both conferences to elevate their nets, right? That the better teams would get to play the better teams from the other half and or the other conference, and in some way build that sort of resume that would enhance the net. And it really didn't do that, did it?
It didn't this year. And, I don't know if you scrapped the whole thing because it didn't do what you wanted this year. Like, it's a whole kind of thing with Sunbelt basketball in general, is that just this year is just kind of a throwaway year on the whole. I mean, it's not going to be for, say, Arkansas State if they win the Sunbelt tournament. It's not a throwaway year. Or if Texas State or whoever wins the conference tournament, it's not a throwaway year. But for the conference as a whole, it was sort of like you've taken 3 or 4 steps forward the last 2 years and now 1 step back this year. And I think you're just kind of hoping over a 5-year period or so, you end up taking a few more steps forward. But this year, the MAC Challenge didn't have really any meaning because nobody was worried about their net rankings at this point.
No, but I was watching a little bit of the Kent State game tonight before I got on with you guys. And man, they were talking about that Red Wolves game like half the time. They were really excited about it. So they felt good. They, at least in the MAC, felt good about having that competition. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it could become sort of a rivalry thing. Yeah. Who knows? But speaking of rivalry, Tibbs, maybe where the most underrated rivalry in the Sun Belt might be baseball. I mean, that we've gotten to the point where it's not just a couple good baseball teams in the Sun Belt that we can rely on to make it into the postseason. We've got actually a bevy, a ball back of teams. And this year, the Sun Belt rankings came out, and preseason rankings came out, Tibbs, and it's pretty tight.
It is tight. The 2-time conference tournament champion, Southern Miss, holds the top spot with 179 points.
Yeah.
1 point behind is your Troy Trojans with 178. The Raging Cajuns at 174, Coastal 161. And then there's a fall off, but that's kind of what we expect, is those really top 4 programs to lead the charge. I think that Georgia Southern being at the 5 spot, they're always just right there on that cusp looking in. Jeremy, our teams respectively, we got to pick it up. Being dead last for the Red Wolves and ULM just above there at 13. But these preseason polls, as great as we want to talk about them, it's really a what have you done for me lately? And quite honestly, last year was not the year of the Warhawk, not the year of the Red Wolves, and definitely not the year of Marshall, who comes in at 12 as well. Shane, I throw it over to you because James Madison is maybe in one of the spots where they're middle of the pack. They really could go either way. How do you kind of see this preseason poll playing out for the season?
I mean, I'm kind of with you. There is that like big separation after the top 4. And it's almost a little disappointing that you talk about Georgia Southern too, that they're not necessarily right there with them. Cause I feel like that's one of the programs that it just feels like they ought to be competing for a championship every year and going into the NCAA regionals. And, maybe they will, but it's almost a little bit of a surprise to me, not paying super close attention to what they did in the offseason, that, it's not all 5 of them packed together more tightly. And then, you talk about a JMU and some of these other teams that are middle of the pack. I think it's a pretty big step down after those teams. And, hopefully Arkansas State is moving in the right direction with their upgraded facilities, new coach, everything else. I'd be optimistic about Arkansas State baseball because, hey, you got the weather, you got a recruiting base, like everything. Like, seems like a great place to have a good baseball program.
Arkansas State has the potential to have a good baseball program, and finally they've put some money into it. They do have new facilities. They have the new turf. They have the new coach. They have the new attitude. But who knows? Who knows what you got? In that bottom half, there are some sort of marquee names down there, guys, that have in the past done very well in the Sun Belt and have made postseason. I'm talking about the Bobcats and South Alabama. Are those guys under the radar? Or are they sincerely having down seasons?
I think that South Alabama definitely lost a lot of guys. I mean, if you remember last year, we had a guy that wound up getting drafted from South Alabama on the podcast. They had another guy there, Sullivan, that got drafted as well. I think that they just lost a lot of talent. Texas State, to me, is the wild card, and they've reloaded with some pretty good talent coming in. Did lose some players to the portal that would really could be difference makers. But I think that 8th ranking for the Bobcats is a little low. Think they could even take over that 5 spot there of Georgia Southern. Don't know if they have the team to compete for the Sun Belt title, but definitely to make it into the upper half of the standings.
Baseball starts next weekend or this weekend?
This weekend, non-conference begins.
All right, so we'll be on the lookout for that. I'm going to try to be a little more excited about baseball this year because of the new attention being put on Arkansas State. So I'll pay greater attention. Shane, let's switch over to the women. What is going on with JMU baseball? Are the big Russians just not, making contact?
I mean, softball.
That's softball.
What did I say?
Baseball.
I've been sick. I've been ill.
You got
probably sick, Jeremy.
The wrong nationalities, but possibly hit on the problem. I think they did not have good at bats over their first 5 games losing. They got some okay pitching, and they knew it was going to be pretty stiff competition down in Orlando for their openers, but they could not string anything together offensively. I think they scored 3 runs the first 4 games. It was rough at the plate. I would expect them to start to do better there because they got some good bats coming back, but not a good start for a program that before it joined the Sun Belt was a premier softball program, and they just really haven't gotten it done since switching conferences.
It's tough to hang in the Sun Belt for softball.
Or is the Sun Belt just knocking the luster off the team? Like it's somehow
some of both. I mean, when they were in the CAA, they could rack up 40 wins pretty easily through their conference season. Like they were going to do it, but they just also have not been as good. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. When they were at their peak, they had some very good local players who wound up being All-American caliber, National Player of the Year type players that were not highly recruited and were from the next county over. And I think there's a little bit of expectation, not expectation, but I think it's easy for JMU fans to forget that you're not going to come across that year in, year out. And I mean, this will probably applies for everybody except for maybe Louisiana, Texas State, a few teams in the Sun Belt. There's a lot more power conference teams that are investing in their softball programs than they used to. In this region, when JMU was really good going to super regionals, College World Series, Virginia did not care about softball one bit. They played on a rec field. They've since built a sparkling brand new stadium that's as nice as I've ever seen. Clemson starts a team. Duke starts a team. Now you're recruiting against all those programs, and it's just a completely different ballgame.
Wow, excellent. This is why we have Shane on the show, Tibbs.
The only reason.
Inside.
Or, I mean, if you're Texas State, too. I mean, you're in a state now where Texas Tech just hired away Louisiana's coach and gives a huge NIL deal to the best pitcher in the country, and now you're competing against them for players, too. It's different. I think it was a lot easier for a mid-major to say, hey, we want to be good at softball, so we're going to put some resources into it.
Yeah, and you can come to those elite softball players and say, hey, look, you're going to have great resources. You're going to have great crowds. You're going to have a great chance to win and be in the postseason. And now, look, yeah, you're right. You're competing against all these other bigger programs who can, put up the same type of resources as you did, perhaps even better. Wow.
But Shane,
yep.
Let me ask you this, though, Shane. James Madison, Georgia State, both sitting at 0-5 right now. Is it early enough in the season that you can still recoup and recover, or are you kind of hovering over the panic button with that?
I think it's early enough for everyone. I mean, you never know. I mean, there were some people who I expected to be in Jamie's lineup too that just didn't play this weekend. I don't know exactly what happened there. So yeah, I think it's definitely early enough to recover. But it's also hard because a lot of these early season tournaments and stuff you go to are the ones that, if you get a couple wins, are the ones that end up pushing you to a regional and at-large berth, and you're kind of missing out on those if you don't get it together pretty quickly.
Speaking of playing on top of their games, I don't know when we said that, but at one point we did. A Sun Belt, a denizen of the Sun Belt. Almost, let's say I would say even the patriarch of the Sun Belt. Larry Blakeney enters the College Sports Hall of Fame or College Football Hall of Fame, Tim?
College Football Hall of Fame.
Okay. So now he is a College Football Hall of Famer. I can't think of many within the Sun Belt, if any, that are in this rare atmosphere. Tibbs, do you know of anybody else who joins Blakeney in that?
Maybe DeMarcus Ware, also from Troy.
Yes,
but yeah,
I
can't really think of anybody in the College Hall of Fame there from the Sun Belt. But Blakeney was the guy. I mean, he came into the league and was already named the most valuable coach at the 10-year anniversary, which was just the 2011 season. So he had only been in the season in the conference a few years, but throughout his tenure, he had 3 Southland Conference titles, 5 Sun Belt Conference titles. Never able to quite get that FCS national title, but he did do a lot of big things for the league and for Troy. I remember in 2004 when they made that at-large bid to the Silicon Valley Bowl. Sure, they wound up losing the game, but that was so big that they made as this small little conference to get an at-large bid to a bowl game. It was no longer just the conference title winner going to the New Orleans Bowl. We had another team in the bowl game, and it was huge. In addition to that, 2007 beat Oklahoma State on his own home turf.
Nice.
Led to the best ever college football meltdown with Gundy screaming, "Come after me, I'm a man, I'm 40."
Wait a second. Are you telling me that was after the Troy game?
Yes.
I didn't know.
So without Troy, without Larry Blakeney, we don't have the ultimate college.
Wow. That's awesome. You know, I remember my thoughts on Larry Blakeney was that he was just always kind of the gold standard for the Sun Belt when it came to professionalism, when it came to running a program. You know, when Troy came into the conference, you know, those guys were always tough, but they always played, you know, in a manner that was befitting big-time college football. Larry Blakeney was that guy. I mean, he was just, you know, like if there was a godfather of Sun Belt football, it would probably be Larry Blakeney. Absolutely. So congratulations to Larry and his accomplishments. Glad to see that he is recognized. I'm sure Troy is thrilled, and well, they should be.
I'll just toss this out there because Jeremy wasn't sure if there were any other Sun Belters in the College Football Hall of Fame. These guys didn't play in the Sun Belt, but guy who was inducted last year from Marshall, you may have heard of Randy Moss.
I've heard of
Who?
that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know that guy.
Southern Miss has somebody named Brett Favre on the list. I see.
Yeah, it's
Ray Guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's not necessarily an exhaustive list, but there are a few that come to mind when.
Okay. Is it fair to appropriate those guys? I know. Like the SEC just started appropriating Big 12 records when they acquired Texas and Oklahoma. But I guess we can do it too. We should be able to do it. If the SEC can do it, then we can do it.
My apologies then to our other college football Hall of Famers there that we failed to recognize.
Okay.
And hey, it's probably worth also mentioning who's not that we've pushed for is Georgia Southern's Irk Russell.
Put Irk in. You
Yeah.
can get the t-shirt, funbeltpodcast.com.
Yep.
Is that
All right.
it?
That could be it. I mean, besides
Did
pranks,
we
practical
just do it?
punch outs, I think that's it. I mean, we could talk more about women's basketball or whatever, but it's all coming to a head. So we should pace ourselves. And I have a
I
call.
like it.
We'll have plenty to talk about in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
Real quick, before we get into that, Jeremy, plugging the shows.
Okay.
FunBelt Podcast, we are now on YouTube, where you can not only see our beautiful
Holy shit.
hooded faces, you can also check out the full catalog of our back episodes on our page, FunBelt Podcast. Check out Netlin, our Sunbelt Conference spinoff there with Shane Metlin, Raising Hal with Jeremy,
Yeah, that's me.
and of course, Believe in the Warhawks with myself and Chase Region as we talk all things ULM. Everyone says I should have called it ULM Mentioned. Sorry, I didn't do it.
What a missed opportunity.
Shane, what do you have for your plug promo parting shot?
What platform did you guys end up watching the Super Bowl on?
Tubi.
Yeah, I have to admit, I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. My son watched it, had some friends over. I was consigned in the bedroom, so I didn't see it. But he had to do it through a computer, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was through YouTube.
He might have done Tubi too, which I just was going to point out that was great marketing by Tubi to put the Super Bowl on there. I don't know if you're like me who had that app on whatever device and never really checked it out. And then I find out the Super Bowl's on there and I watch it. And since then I've watched a couple of movies that I had no idea were streaming, like singles and some stuff I hadn't seen in a long time. So I'm just going to say my parting shots. Congratulations, Tubi. I think you got what you wanted out of putting the Super Bowl on this obscure app. Fox, whoever was in charge of that, like, congratulations, it worked. I'm sticking with Tubi. I'm going to be watching good stuff on there that I did not know was there until I clicked off the Super Bowl and saw other stuff.
Shane, go ahead and see if they're playing the Black Stallion on Tubi.
I'll look for it.
All right, you won't regret it. It's not a fast-paced movie, but you'll enjoy the movie. It's a classic.
Jeremy, before you die, give us your plug promo parting shot.
Well, I don't get political on the show, and I won't get political tonight, but I do want to expose a little bit of dumbassery that's going on.
I love dumbassery.
There's some dumbassery that happened today. It's coming out of Georgia's 1st district. A congressman named Buddy Carter has introduced a new bill. And the bill is to rename Greenland. Here's how the bill goes. Here's how the proclamation goes. America is back, and we will soon be bigger than ever with the addition of red, white, and blue land. President Trump has correctly identified the purchase of what is now Greenland as a national security priority, and we will proudly welcome the people to join our free nation when our negotiator in chief makes this monumental deal. Now, I'm not going to weigh in on whether or not Greenland is important to our national security, but to rename Greenland red, white, and blue land is a level of dumbassery that just needs to stop. Can we please just stop with dumbassery? We've got plenty of problems in this country. Why are we antagonizing the good people of Greenland by having some obscure congressman from Georgia introduce bills that have nothing to do with anything? Please, just do your job.
I just wish or hope that global warming melts the ice caps enough for it to float into the Gulf of America.
Just sit there and melt. Oh my goodness.
It's all over the news, Jeremy.
Yep. Okay.
Eggs are expensive.
Yeah, they're like $7. I bought them today.
Well, they're not expensive if you happen to see an 18-wheeler that is advertising that it is carrying eggs, and you decide to rob the said truck for over $40,000 worth of eggs. What the hell has happened where eggs are now on the felony level for people to be stealing them?
It makes sense to me. Like I was talking to my wife, because quite frankly, if you had told me like 2 years ago, 12 eggs was $10, I'd be like, okay, they're $10. I have no idea how much eggs are, but apparently just a solid price for a dozen eggs is like $2.50, right? Maybe $1.89 at one point, but let's say it's $2.50. I paid $7 today, so yeah, wow, what a commodity that you have. If you got 40,000 eggs, it's going for $7 a dozen. That seems like that's like yolk gold right there, Shane.
Yeah.
I see how I threw that to Shane, and he was not ready for that at all.
I bought my eggs by the half dozen this weekend just because they were that expensive.
Huh. Now
Shane was so pissed. He tackled the kids out there egging his house, not because they were egging his house, but because he wanted the eggs.
Yeah.
Somebody said, yeah, back in our day, eggs were something you threw at your enemies. And now you're hoarding them like gold.
Or toilet paper.
Toilet paper, too.